I'm here with actor Gary Sugai. Gary, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Gary, you've been acting for a while. Let's start with how you got involved in acting.
Okay, so I started acting in 2000, and I started in Baltimore, Maryland. I did that from 2000 to 2009. And what I did is I did community theater first. That's how I started acting. I just wanted to get my feet wet, and I also did background acting by doing the Wire, the HBO Wire. That was back in early 2000. That's not filming anymore. Um, then after that, from 2010 to 2019, I went to New York to study theater and did a lot of theater acting. I did the Meisner technique at the William Esper Studio in New York for 2 years. It's a 2-year conservatory. And then from 2019, before the pandemic, I moved here to LA to do TV film. So I was very lucky to do that. And what helped me to get here was I had a day job that helped me move here because they were able to pay some of the expenses. So now, since the pandemic is over, things are starting to pick up. It has been slow, but what I do right now while I'm not working is I'm constantly training and taking study classes and audition technique just to stay with it. And I actually go 5 days a week for training, which is, it's a lot. Because I have to do a lot of homework after that, outside of the classes. So.
Now, you started as many actors did in community theater. How did that prepare you for your acting roles to come?
When I did community theater, it actually taught me how to be a theater actor, because when I first started, I didn't know anything about acting. To me, acting was just all that glamour that you see in the Oscars and all that stuff. But what community theater has taught me is to be a stage actor. It actually helped me get out of my shell as a person. Because I was a very shy person at the time, and that helped me to just be fearless and confident with anything that I do as an actor. I remember I did the Mrs. Bob Cratchit's Wild Christmas Binge musical. I was not a singer. They auditioned me to sing, and they were like, "Oh, okay, you're good enough," and all that stuff. And that was my first musical that I did in Baltimore, Maryland, and I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun because I had a lot of energy doing it. The theater acting was something I really loved to do at the time. But also, it helped me to become this actor that I am today because, like I said, I didn't know anything about acting at the time. So.
And then, because you didn't know much then, you went to New York and you learned. So
Yeah.
you learned a specific acting technique.
Yeah, so I did the Meisner technique in New York City, and what that does is it teaches you to, get that reaction from your partner, and how do you feel about that when that partner gives you, your acting partner gives you that reaction. I had a hard time taking things in when I first started acting. That technique has taught me how to react towards the feedback that I get from my partner as an actor. It also taught me how to have active listening, which is very important as an actor, because if you don't have that active listening, you can't react towards it. But putting feelings, acting, and the other thing that theater acting has taught me is when you put the feeling behind the lines, it's not just memorizing the lines, but putting the feeling behind the lines helps you to actually remember the lines and helps you to focus. And that's what the technique has also taught me as well. It's all about feelings and reacting.
So then, you were working out in New York, doing these things. Were there any actors or acting coaches that were influential to you?
I do have currently a couple or a few acting coaches. His name is James Sugai. He's located in New York. I've been in his scene study and audition technique classes on Zoom since April of last year. He has connections with the casting directors in Law and Order, NCIS, Chicago PD, Chicago Fire, FBI. And to me, I mean, they love the work that I do, and to me, I did it because it's all about connections and networking. So I'm not only connecting with the industry here, I'm also staying in touch with the people that I've connected with in New York. He has a lot of connections in TV film in New York City. So also here in LA, I did Steven Snyder, who is another acting coach who has a lot of connections with the casting directors here in LA. If I had not met him, I would have not known any of the casting directors here in LA because I noticed that over here it tends to be under the carpet, whereas in New York there's more exposure and more opportunities to meet the casting directors.
Mm-hmm. So then, from your New York focus, you came here to Hollywood. You came at a particular time in Hollywood history. You came in 2019.
Yes.
So what was it like moving here, starting your career over in a new place, and then the pandemic hits?
Well, I left New York in late July of 2019, and I drove across country, which I had never done before. That was the first time I've done that. And a lot of people said that was like a bold move, which it was, because it took me 8 days to get here. But it was also enjoyable because I was able to see other parts of the country. When I first got here, I wasn't really used to it. I did get homesick because I had a lot of friends over there, a lot of actor friends and a lot of family. Over here, I felt like I had to start over again. But it wasn't hard because what I did, and to be honest, what I did when I first came here, I did a lot of research on Google. And that's how I found this acting coach, Steven Snyder. I Googled acting coaches, acting classes, casting directors, and all that stuff. That's how I do my research. And I was being very creative about that, which I am most times.
So have you noticed any differences in the film industry in New York versus in LA?
Yes. I noticed now in New York, back in the day, it wasn't as big as it was here. Now, today, it's the reverse from my perspective. I noticed there's a lot more TV film that's building more in New York and also in Atlanta and Vancouver. In LA, it seems like a lot of it has been lost, partly due to the pandemic and also the taxes. They didn't give any tax breaks here in LA, whereas in New York and Atlanta there are more tax breaks. So then now the film industry they start spreading out in different parts of the country. Now what they're doing, from what I heard, is that the governor is trying to bring all that back and give a lot of tax breaks to the film industry and all that stuff because they want to bring all that back here in LA because this is supposed to be the capital of it. And I see that happening. It's starting to build up a little bit. After January of this year, it's starting to get better.
Now, I know there's a lot of talk in the industry about increasing a diversity in roles. So how do you think, has Hollywood changed and increased diversity, and what's it like acting here, being an Asian actor trying to get roles?
Back in the day, for Asians, it was a lot harder because they were typecast as karate actors. I found that to be very offensive. Now, I noticed after the pandemic, there are a lot more opportunities. And I'm seeing a lot of Asian actors in commercials and a lot of movies, television. And they're not being as typecast as much as they used to be. So I do see a lot of opportunities for Asian actors. There is more diversity now than there used to be, as from what I see. In the theater world, it's becoming the same thing. There's more diversity in roles in terms of stage acting and, commercials too. But I noticed the commercials, the commercials are universal as well.
Now, you've worked in both theater world and in the film world. Are there any differences in how you approach acting in each of them?
I noticed for me, theater acting is you're more open to, and you're more free to be that actor because you have to project yourself and you have to be over the top. Whereas I noticed when I started with TV film, I had to bring all that back and keep it like in one place because it's very tight. I noticed that, and it was hard for me to adjust to that because I've been told many times to tone it down, and I've gotten better with that because I think it's because I've been so used to, when I first moved here, I've gotten used to that toning it down part. Whereas it's easy for me because if I were to go back on the stage again, I'm just like, okay, I can be more out there. But with TV films, it feels like you have to stay in one place.
Now, even after 20 years of acting, there's always more things to learn. And you're taking classes, you're learning more about acting, you're also learning more about the business of acting.
Yep.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of actors think it's just doing scene work, auditioning, and all that stuff, and it's not. You have to know about the business. You have to go out there and make those connections because if you don't, you just stay in your own little bubble and people don't know who you are, you're not going to get work. And it's not just about the work, you got to be, and it's also the attitude. I notice some actors, not all actors, but they have this ego. The ego doesn't get you any further because once the director or producer sees that, they're not going to cast you anymore. You're considered a very difficult person to work with. And, that's very important. But also the business side of it, you gotta make those connections. That's the most important part, is to make those connections. And that's what I learned when I first came to LA. I learned that part because when I was in New York, I didn't learn it that much. I was more focused on just the work itself. That's what's important. And that is the biggest gift of moving here to LA, is because I noticed in LA it's more about the connections and building that connection. And I got that from James Saccone, my acting coach, and also Jig Reels, which is located in Pasadena, California. And Jig Reels is another studio where they help you to do, film your clips and all that stuff for your auditions. So I did take a mentoring program there as well, and it taught me how to get the networking going when I first came to LA.
Now, what projects have you been involved in?
I just did a vertical short film. It's on realshorts.com, and it was about this girl's brother who wanted to commit suicide, and it was actually filmed here in downtown LA. I was playing the doctor. I was his doctor because he was so depressed that he had a music career and things just wasn't working out for him. Just like an actor, he wasn't getting any work. He wasn't being recognized. So in that role, I had to help prevent the suicide from happening. And so we did it on the rooftop, and the brother didn't actually step on the roof, but it made it look like, the way they edited it, it made it look like they're going to jump off the building. It was my first time doing a vertical short film, because with doing a vertical short film, it's so tight, because whereas you are, filming horizontally or having multi-cameras, you're free to move around a little bit more. But with a vertical short film, you have to be in a very tight position, and your pacing has to be a lot slower. You can't move, because when you do vertical short films, you're out of the frame most times, because people aren't used to that. And that just started from what I've seen last year.
Yeah, so, those are becoming increasingly popular now.
Yes, they are. And a lot of people say, well, you're not going to make a lot of, getting a lot of connections. You're not going to get a lot of work out of that. People aren't going to recognize that. And that's not true. Because, we are now the guinea pigs of that type of vertical filming. And it will become more common in the future. And it's cost effective. That's why they do that.
So then, do you approach acting for vertical film different than you would for like a horizontal traditional
Yeah.
camera?
The biggest part with the vertical filming is you have to be aware of the biggest thing is the framing. Um, it's almost like, and I'll tell you how it was like. There was a little monitor on top of the camera itself, and I could see it as well as the director and the camera. Yeah, there was a camera on top of the film, the camera itself, and you could actually see in your peripheral vision whether you'd be out of frame or in frame. And that was actually a gift because some cameras don't have that assistance where you can, you just got to be aware of actually the camera. You got to be positioned to where the cameras are right in front of you while you're talking to your acting partner. So you have to look at your peripheral vision as well, because otherwise you'll keep being out of frame. And they don't like that because it's money.
And then I know as you've been taking all these acting classes, you've studied like how to block for camera. Did that come in handy here?
Absolutely. I've been taking that camera blocking class at the Jake Real Studios in Pasadena. It has taught me how to position myself while on camera, in front of the camera, and also the lens size of the camera. It's like, it tells you the angles, camera angles. You have to be aware of that, because once you take that TV film blocking class, it makes the director's job a lot easier, because they'll say, oh, this guy knows where to go, where to position himself, and you have to be, again, aware of where the camera is. It's not just, doing your acting part. You got to understand the technical parts of it, and also the lighting. They taught us that too. If yeah, it's just a lot of actors they don't know much about the TV blocking class, and they don't, because when you get on set, and if you demonstrate to them that you don't know what you're doing, they're just gonna find somebody else. But that class has helped me a lot.
And do you have any advice for actors who are getting started, who want to do more like film roles, or want to learn more about the process of acting?
Yeah, so, I'm not saying everybody has to do what I did when I first started, but I really think, everybody starts from the bottom. Don't rush it. You have a lot of time. No matter what age you are, I know Morgan Freeman started acting when he was in his 50s. But the biggest part, if you want to start out in acting, is get your feet wet. Don't get into the community theater, do background acting, make those connections. That's the biggest part, is making those connections with people. And also working on, building your experience. And even if you didn't have any experience, you don't have to think about, oh, I gotta be on this big movie or be in Law and Order right then and there. It doesn't work that way. It's persistence, patience, constant training, and it's not just about the headshots as well. That's part of it, but you also have to. It's just like any job. If you regular job, if you don't have that experience, they're not going to look at you. Or education's part of it too, but it's different when you're first starting, because and also here's the biggest thing: find a legitimate acting coach or a teacher that's well known. Do your research. Don't just pick anybody and say, oh, this person's been in Hollywood, but do the research. What's their background? Where did they teach?
How do you know if they're a good coach?
Go on Google. And the other thing is, if another fellow actor refers you to a good coach, verify that by going on Google and researching that coach. It's all by referrals, in my opinion. The other thing I've done is I type in Google search, best acting coaches in LA, best acting coaches in New York. That's how I did it. And then I researched.
Gary, thank you for coming here. Where can our viewers find out more about you?
I'm Japanese Filipino mixed, and I'm just still grinding it and putting a lot of time into my career. And Yeah, I'm still struggling, but I'm still persisting. I'm not going to give up on it. And that's one thing I don't do is I don't give up. I just keep going until the unexpected happens.
Do you have any social medias where our fans could follow you?
I am. I am on Instagram, also on Facebook, and also I started a TikTok page, which I just started last year. So you can find me on TikTok as well by typing my name, and on Instagram and Facebook.
Well, thank you so much for being here with
Thank
us.
you for having me.
Thank you, viewers, for watching, and stay tuned. We have a lot more great interviews coming up. Bye.
Bye.